And that, kids, is why you never, ever steal a human's coffee maker, Captain Zixnax concluded, his tentacles waving dramatically as he finished his tale. The gathered Xenocadets stared at him, their various eye stalks, antennae, and sensory appendages twitching in a mixture of disbelief and horror. One brave soul, a gelatinous blob by the name of Gloop, yes, really raised a pseudopod. But Captain Gloop burbled, "Surely you're exaggerating. No sentient species could be that. Insane? Terrifying?" Caffeine-addicted Zixnax offered helpfully, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a grin among his species. All of the above, Gloop conceded, rippling in what might have been a shudder. Zixnax leaned back in his hover chair, his 8 eyes glinting with amusement. "Oh, my dear cadets, you have no idea. Gather round, and let me tell you the full story of how I learned firsthand why the Galactic Council classified Earth as a death world, and why don't mess with a human's morning routine became the 11th commandment of intergalactic relations." The cadets huddled closer, some literally melting together in anticipation. Zixnax cleared his throat, or what passed for one in his species, and began his tale. The Vanin blinked rapidly, its translator drone working overtime. I do not understand. What is this yoga? Is it a form of cultural exchange?" The governor's smile was decidedly unfriendly. "Oh, it's an exchange, all right. You'll be exchanging the cozy environment of our climate-controlled colony for the charming Martian atmosphere. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Bit chilly, touch on the unbreathable side, but the views are to die for." She paused, letting that last bit sink in. "Literally. I felt my exoskeleton grow cold. Surely they wouldn't, but one look at the faces around me confirmed that yes, they would." The Vanin must have realized the gravity of its situation because it started chittering frantically. Wait, there is no need for such drastic measures. We can negotiate. Perhaps a trade. We have many valuable artifacts from across the galaxy. "We don't want your trinkets," Dr. Chen snapped. "We want our coffee. All of it. Now." But it's for science," the Vanin protested weakly. A low, menacing growl rippled through the assembled humans. I made a mental note: never, ever get between a human and their coffee, even in the name of science. Especially in the name of science. The governor held up a hand, silencing the growls. "Let me put this in terms you'll understand. You have precisely 1 Martian minute to start talking, or we'll be conducting our own little scientific experiment to see how long a Vanin can survive in near-vacuum conditions." I watched in fascinated horror as a countdown appeared on the massive airlock door, projected in angry red numerals. The Vanin's eyes darted frantically between the timer and the sea of caffeine-deprived faces surrounding it. At the 30-second mark, it broke. All right, I'll tell you everything," it wailed. "The coffee is hidden in a cloaked ship just outside the colony's sensor range. We used our phase-shifting technology to smuggle it out bit by bit while you slept. The access codes are... The rest was lost in a cacophony of cheers, whoops, and what I can only describe as feral coffee-seeking noises. The humans moved with startling speed and efficiency for beings in the throes of caffeine withdrawal. Within minutes, a retrieval team was suited up and heading for the airlock. As the team prepared to depart, Dave, who had somehow materialized in the chaos, turned to the still trembling Vanin word of advice: "Buddy, next time you want to study something, try asking first, or at least pick something less vital. Like, I don't know, our oxygen supply." The Vanin's translator sputtered in confusion. But oxygen is necessary for your survival. Surely that is more important than a mere beverage." The humans within earshot exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Some laughed. Others just shook their heads pityingly. Dave patted the alien on what passed for its shoulder. "You really don't get it, do you? Okay, let me break it down for you. You take our oxygen, we've got about 15 minutes of panic followed by a peaceful death. You take our coffee," he gestured at the room full of humans, many of whom were still eyeing the Vanin like they were considering whether it might be edible. "Well, you've seen what happens. I know which one I'd prefer." I couldn't help but interject. "But surely that's an exaggeration. I mean, I understand coffee is important to you, but..." Dave cut me off with a look that could have frozen a sun. "Zix, buddy, remember how I was that morning you borrowed my coffee maker?" I shuddered at the memory. Yes. Right now, imagine that, but with an entire colony, for days. Maybe weeks. He paused, letting the horror of that scenario sink in. "Trust me, we'd last longer without oxygen." As if to punctuate his point, a cheer went up from the crowd. The retrieval team had returned, hauling hovercrates laden with their precious cargo. The scent of coffee filled the air as the first packages were ripped open, and I swear I could feel the collective blood pressure of every human in the room dropping. Within minutes, the coffee machines throughout the colony were humming to life. I watched in amazement as the transformation swept through the assembled humans. The wild eyes and twitchy movements were replaced by sighs of contentment and relaxed smiles. It was as if a switch had been flipped, turning a horde of caffeine-deprived colleagues. As relative calm descended on the colony, I found myself standing next to the governor, Dr. Chen, and the thoroughly chastened Caff Vannon. So the governor said, sipping from a steaming mug, "I believe we were scheduled to sign some treaties today." Dr. Chen nodded, already on her second cup. "Yes, trade agreements, cultural exchange protocols, the usual." The governor's gaze fell on the Caff Vannon, who was trying very hard to blend into the wall. A slow, slightly terrifying smile spread across her face. I think we might need to add a few clauses. Something about the sanctity of coffee supplies and the consequences of unauthorized scientific sampling. I cleared my throat nervously. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss the concept of proportional response. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me, 2 human, 1 multifaceted. All 3 held the same expression of amused pity. "Oh, my dear Zixnax," the governor chuckled, clapping me on what she probably thought was my shoulder. It was actually a sensory appendage, but I was too polite to correct her. "That was our proportional response. Trust me, you don't want to see disproportionate." And so, gathered around a hastily assembled conference table, fueled by what I was quickly coming to realize was the true lifeblood of human civilization, we drafted what would come to be known as the Mars Coffee Accords. Its main points were simple. 1. All coffee and coffee-related supplies are to be considered vital resources on par with oxygen and water. 2. Any attempt to remove, study, or otherwise interfere with a human settlement's coffee supply without express written consent is grounds for immediate diplomatic incident. 3. In the event of coffee-related emergencies, all other protocols and regulations may be suspended until caffeination levels return to normal. 4. The phrase "but it was for science" is not a valid defense, ever. As I watched the humans and the thoroughly cowed Caff Vannon sign the document, I couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. I had witnessed a side of humanity that few non-humans had seen and lived to tell about. I had seen the razor's edge they walked between civilization and caffeine-deprived chaos. But more than that, I had gained a new appreciation for the strange duality of human nature. The same beings who had been ready to space someone over coffee were now laughing, joking, and welcoming the Caff Vannon into their social circles. All it took was a good cup of joe, as they called it. As the impromptu celebration wound down, Dave sidled up to me, a fresh mug in hand. "So Zix, learn anything today?" I considered the question carefully. "Several things, I believe. Never underestimate the importance of cultural understanding. Always ask before borrowing, especially if the item in question might be more vital than it appears." And I paused, searching for the right words. And Dave prompted, grinning. "And if I ever decide to open a business in human space, it's going to be a coffee shop," I finished. Dave laughed, raising his mug in a toast. "Now you're getting it. To cultural exchange and the power of coffee." I raised my own mug filled with a human-safe alternative that was decidedly not coffee and echoed the toast. As I sipped my drink, I made a mental note to update the Galactic Council's briefing on humanity. Clearly, the section on approach with caution needed to be expanded, and right at the top, in bold letters, I would add, "Whatever you do, don't touch their coffee." Captain Zixnax leaned back, his tale complete. The assembled cadets stared at him in stunned silence, their various appendages frozen in expressions of shock, awe, and more than a little fear. Finally, Gloop, the gelatinous blob, raised a pseudopod. "Captain," it burbled hesitantly, is that really how the Mars Coffee Accords came to be? It's not just a scary story you tell to new recruits." Zixnax's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smirk. "Oh, it's real all right. You can look it up in the Galactic archives. Though I'll admit, the official version is a bit drier. Fewer threats of spacing, more diplomatic language, but the essence is the same." Another cadet, a multi-id being from the Silicon Nebula, spoke up. "But sir, surely humans have evolved beyond such primitive dependencies by now. It's been decades since those events." The captain let out a sound that might have been a laugh, if laughs could convey existential dread. "Evolved beyond it? Oh, my sweet summer larva, they've only gotten worse. These days they have coffee machines in their spaceships. There are rumors of coffee-powered FTL drives in development. And don't even get me started on what happened during the great Starbucks shortage of 2189. A collective shudder ran through the room. "So you see," Zixnax concluded, his voice taking on a serious tone, "that's why the 11th commandment of intergalactic relations is so important. Don't mess with a human's morning routine isn't just good advice, it's a survival strategy." He looked around at the YD'd and in some cases YD-stalked cadets. "Any more questions?" The room was silent for a moment. Then, from the back, a timid voice asked, "Sir, what exactly is a Starbucks?" Zixnax sighed, all 8 of his eyes closing briefly. "Strap in, cadets. That's a whole other story. And trust me, you're going to need your own caffeine equivalent for this one. Now let me tell you about the time I accidentally walked into a pumpkin spice latte riot. As the captain launched into another tale, the cadets settled in, equal parts terrified and fascinated. They had come seeking knowledge about the strange species known as humans. What they were getting was a crash course in the most powerful force in the known universe. The never-ending human quest for a decent cup of coffee. It all started on what should have been a routine diplomatic mission. The year was 2157 by Earth's calendar, just a few decades after humanity had joined the galactic community. I was a fresh-faced lieutenant then, assigned to the cultural exchange vessel Harmonious Convergence, a name that would soon prove to be hilariously ironic. Our mission was simple: visit Earth's first off-world colony on Mars, conduct some diplomatic niceties, and gather data on how humans were adapting to life on the red planet. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, as the humans would say. Side note, I still don't understand what citrus fruits have to do with simplicity, but that's humans for you. Now you've all studied basic human physiology, right? A chorus of affirmative clicks, whistles, and gurgles answered him, good so. You know that humans are classified as persistence predators and endurance omnivores. What your textbooks probably failed to mention is that they're also caffeine-powered maniacs. You see, humans have this peculiar habit of consuming a beverage called coffee. It's derived from roasted seeds of a plant native to their home world, and it contains a stimulant that acts on their neural pathways. To say they're fond of it would be like saying a hyperleviathan of Nintux Prime is fond of consuming entire star systems. Our ship had docked at the Mars colony's main hub, and we were assigned quarters in their diplomatic wing. My roommate was a human named Dave. Yes, just Dave. Apparently, it's a common name. I asked if it was short for Davatulhu, destroyer of worlds, but he just laughed. Humans laugh at the strangest things. Dave seemed nice enough. He showed me around our shared living space, explained how to use the sanitation facilities, don't ask, and pointed out this boxy contraption on a countertop. That's the coffee maker, he said, his voice taking on an almost reverent tone. It's the most important thing in this room. Hell, probably the most important thing in the whole damn colony. I nodded sagely, pretending to understand the significance of this strange device. Ah yes, the coffee maker. It makes the coffee, I presume. Dave grinned. You're catching on quick, buddy. Yeah, it makes the coffee. And coffee makes the humans function. Remember that, and you'll go far in interspecies diplomacy. With that cryptic advice, Dave bid me good night. It was the Martian equivalent of 3 a.m., apparently, and I settled in for my sleep cycle. Now, here's where things started to go horribly, hilariously wrong. You see, I had been tasked with collecting data on human technology, and this coffee maker seemed like a pivotal piece of equipment. So, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to borrow it for further study. At this point, Zixnax paused dramatically, all 8 of his eyes closing as if reliving a particularly painful memory. The cadets leaned in even closer, some literally quivering with anticipation. I woke up to the sound of, well, imagine a Kraxon beast in its death throes, mixed with the mating call of a serious cyberwolf, and you'll have some idea of the ungodly noise that assaulted my auditory receptors. It was Dave. Sweet, friendly Dave had transformed into something that would give a xenomorph nightmares. His face was contorted into a mask of primal rage, his eyes bloodshot and wild. He was ransacking our quarters, tearing apart furniture, and howling one word over and over. Coffee. Coffee. Where's the fucking coffee maker? I, of course, did the sensible thing. I plastered myself against the ceiling, thanked the galactic spirits for my species' suction cup appendages, and tried very hard to become invisible. It didn't work. Dave's head snapped up, his gaze locking onto me with the intensity of a targeting laser. He growled, his voice barely recognizable as human. Where is my coffee maker? Now, I'd like to say I bravely stood my ground and calmly explained the situation, but the truth is, I panicked. Words poured out of me faster than a quantum data stream. I'm so sorry, Dave, I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to study it. I thought it was some kind of important technology. I didn't know it was vital to your survival. Please don't eat me. I taste terrible. I'm all tentacles and exoskeleton. Dave's expression shifted from rage to confusion, then to a kind of manic amusement. He started laughing, a sound that, in that moment, was even more terrifying than his anger. You took my coffee maker. For research, he wheezed between bouts of laughter that seemed to border on hysteria. I nodded frantically, still clinging to the ceiling. Oh man, Dave gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. That's actually hilarious. But seriously, dude, where is it? I need my coffee. Like, 5 minutes ago. Cautiously, I descended from my ceiling sanctuary and retrieved the coffee maker from where I'd hidden it in my biosample containment unit. Dave snatched it from my tentacles and cradled it like a long-lost child. Oh baby, I'm so sorry he cooed to the machine. Did the mean alien scare you? It's okay, Daddy's here now. I watched in fascinated horror as Dave went through an elaborate ritual of measuring grounds, pouring water, and pressing buttons. The machine gurgled and hissed, emitting a scent that was simultaneously enticing and repulsive. Finally, Dave poured the dark liquid into a mug and took a long sip. The change was immediate and astounding. The wild look left his eyes, replaced by a clarity that hadn't been there before. His entire posture relaxed, and a blissful smile spread across his face. Aha, he sighed contentedly. That's the stuff, okay? Crisis averted. Sorry about the whole rage monster thing, buddy. I'm not really myself before my morning coffee. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process the transformation I'd just witnessed. That liquid. It changed you. Is it some kind of mood-altering drug? A psychoactive substance? Dave laughed again, but this time it was a warm, friendly sound. Nah, it's just coffee. Well, okay, yeah, I guess technically it is a drug, but it's a socially acceptable one. Look, let me explain. And so began my education in the intricacies of human coffee culture. Dave, now fully caffeinated and surprisingly cheerful given the circumstances, gave me a crash course in everything from bean varieties to brewing methods. He explained concepts like morning people, a mythical subset of humans who can function without coffee, and don't talk to me until I've had my coffee, a survival warning that I'd inadvertently ignored. By the end of his lecture, I felt like I'd gained insight into some fundamental aspect of human psychology. Coffee, it seemed, wasn't just a beverage. It was a cultural touchstone, a social lubricant, and for many the only thing standing between them and complete barbarity. So I ventured cautiously, this coffee is essential to human functioning. Dave considered this for a moment. Well, not essential. We can survive without it. We just really don't want to, and neither does anyone around us. I nodded, making a mental note to update the Galactic database with this crucial information. I see. And what would happen if, say, hypothetically, someone were to deprive a large group of humans of coffee? Dave's eyes widened, and he quickly gulped down the rest of his mug. Who were there, buddy? Let's not even joke about that. That's like against the Geneva Convention or something. I didn't know what this Geneva Convention was, but I made another mental note to research it later. It sounded important. Little did I know, this seemingly innocent question would come back to haunt me in the most spectacular way possible. Fast forward a few days. The diplomatic mission was going smoothly, or so we thought. We toured the Mars colony, attended meetings, and even participated in something called a mixer, which seemed to involve a lot of standing around, making small talk, and consuming various beverages, including, of course, copious amounts of coffee. Everything was going great until the incident. It was the morning of the final day of our visit. We were scheduled to have a big farewell ceremony, complete with speeches, gift exchanges, and the signing of some minor treaties. Important stuff, but nothing too earth-shattering, or so we thought. I woke up early, excited for the day ahead. Dave was still asleep, so I decided to head to the communal area where most of the diplomatic corps gathered for breakfast. As I entered the room, I immediately sensed that something was off. The humans were huddled in small groups, whispering furiously. Some looked angry. Others seemed on the verge of tears. A few were just staring blankly into space, their eyes unfocused and haunted. I spotted a familiar face, Dr. Emily Chen, one of the colony's lead scientists. She'd always been friendly and eager to explain human customs to us visitors. I approached her cautiously. Dr. Shen, is everything all right? You all seem distressed. She turned to me, her eyes wild with a desperation I'd only seen once before, in Dave, that fateful morning when I'd borrowed his coffee maker. All right, she laughed, a brittle hysterical sound. No, everything is not all right. It's a disaster, a catastrophe. The end of civilization as we know it. I took an involuntary step back, my tentacles curling defensively. What happened? Was there an accident? A breach in the colony's defenses? Worse, she hissed, leaning in close. Someone, or something, stole all the coffee. I froze, my exoskeleton turning a pale shade of what humans would call, oh shit, green. All of it, I squeaked. She nodded grimly. All of it. Every last bean. The entire colony's supply gone. Vanished. Poof, she made an expansive gesture with her hands, nearly smacking a passing diplomat in the face. He didn't even seem to notice. But how? Why, I stammered, my mind racing. Surely there are security measures, protocols. Dr. Chen shrugged helplessly. We don't know. It happened sometime during the night. One minute we had a fully stocked coffee storage facility, the next empty. No alarms, no signs of forced entry, just gone. I looked around the room with new understanding. The anger, the despair, the vacant stares, it all made sense now. I was witnessing the early stages of colony-wide coffee withdrawal. What's going to happen, I asked, dreading the answer. Dr. Chen's face hardened. We've got maybe an hour before things get really ugly. The morning people are trying to keep everyone calm, but they're outnumbered. We're implementing emergency rationing of our caffeinated soda supplies, but it's a stopgap at best. If we don't find that coffee, she trailed off, leaving the consequences unspoken but vividly imagined. Just then, a commotion at the far end of the room caught our attention. A group of humans had surrounded something. As the crowd parted, I caught a glimpse of iridescent scales in multiple limbs. My heart sank. I recognized that species. It was a calf vanin, a race known throughout the galaxy for their love of acquiring rare and valuable substances. What humans might call kleptomaniacs if kleptomaniacs had 6 arms and a natural cloaking ability. The calf vanin was chittering excitedly, either oblivious to or unconcerned by the growing hostility of the humans around it. A translator drone hovered nearby, struggling to keep up with the rapid-fire alien speech. Most fascinating substance. Such complex molecular structure. The psychoactive effects, the cultural significance. A true galactic treasure. We had to secure a sample for study, you understand, for science. The humans were not impressed by this explanation. The growls and muttered threats growing in volume reminded me uncomfortably of my experience with Pre-Coffee Dave. I turned to Dr. Chen, intending to suggest we intervene before things got out of hand, but the look on her face stopped me cold. Gone was the friendly scientist I'd known. In her place was something primal, dangerous. They took our coffee, she said, her voice low and eerily calm, for science. And then, as if those words were a signal, all hell broke loose. Now, I've seen my fair share of chaos in my years of space exploration. I've witnessed supernovas, narrowly escaped black holes, and even survived a Rigellian bachelor party. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The humans moved with a speed and coordination that belied their caffeine-deprived state. Before the calf vanin could so much as blink its compound eyes, it was surrounded, lifted bodily into the air, and carried out of the room by a sea of angry, coffee-starved colonists. I turned to Dr. Chen, my mandibles clicking in distress. Where are they taking it? What are they going to do? She smiled grimly. They're going to get our coffee back, one way or another. I followed the mob, partly out of a sense of duty. I was, after all, supposed to be promoting interspecies harmony, but mostly out of morbid curiosity. And if I'm being honest, a healthy dose of fear. I had a feeling that if I lost sight of these humans, I might be the next target of their caffeine-deprived rage. The procession wound its way through the colony's corridors, growing in size as more humans joined. Some were still in their sleep attire, others clutched empty mugs like weapons. All were expressions of grim determination. We finally arrived at a large circular chamber that I recognized as the colony's main airlock. The calf vanin was unceremoniously dumped in the center of the room, its many limbs flailing in panic. A human I recognized as the colony's governor stepped forward. Despite the early hour and the lack of coffee, she managed to project an aura of authority. The room fell silent. All right, you sparkly excuse for a cat burglar, she growled, her voice carrying clearly through the tense atmosphere. Here's the deal. You're going to tell us where you hid our coffee, or we're going to introduce you to a little thing we like to call Martian outdoor yoga. The calf vanin blinked rapidly, its translator drone working overtime. I do not understand. What is this yoga? Is it